What's up everybody, welcome back to our channel. It's the Fat Man here. Today I'm going to hold your hand and guide you through the balanced Druid in patch 7.0 as opposed to patch 6.2. Let's do this shit. Right, so the first thing that you're going to notice whenever you log on to your balanced Druid is that there isn't a lunar and solar cycle anymore. That's gone. And we have a new resource. It's called Astral Power. I mean, all of our sort of core abilities that we've had since the beginning of Warlords of Draenor are still kind of there. Although our dots, as you can see, we haven't just got Moonfire that then alternates to Sunfire whenever it goes solar. We have both, as it was back in Mists of Pandaria, which is pretty cool. Which means that you can then refresh your dots, and it's just a lot easier to keep the dots up, as opposed to having to wait for the lunar cycle to come around. And we still have, well, it's called Solar Wrath, but it's still Wrath. We have Lunar Strike, which is still essentially Starfire, but it doesn't hit as hard as Starfire does. In fact, that's going to be our cleave and splash AoE damage. You really only want to cast Lunar Strike if there's more than one target, but we'll cover that more later on. We still have Star Surge, but instead of it having 3 charges on a 30-second recharge, it's now 40 astral power, and it has absolutely no cooldown whatsoever. We still have Starfall, but Starfall is now more of like a it's more like a drop and forget type thing now, Starfall. But it's just there really to empower our dots now. So if I put up Moonfire, Sunfire, and Stellar Flare, and then drop Starfall, I gain Stellar Empowerment on that target, and it takes 59% additional damage from my dots. So I mean, while it does hit kind of hard, it's just not a damage dealing ability really. It's more of a buff for our 2 core dots, and Stellar Flare as well. If you want a talent into Stellar Flare, use Wrath, build your Astral Power. Use Lunar Strike to build your Astral Power if there's more than one target, and more than one target you should be using Starfall to buff up your dots, and Sunfire as well. Keep that applied to all targets. And Star Surge is obviously your big damage dealer for single target. Now you'll notice that we got Innervate back, which is super nice. It's more of like a cooldown. You'll be able to give your healers like a buff where they'll be able to cast their heals for 10 seconds without spending any mana. So it's really nice for like Kilrog, the death throes phase, where it seems that people seem to take a lot of damage, or on the waves phase of Lord Zakuun. That'll be really handy to cast on one of the healers. So yeah, that's definitely one ability to keep in mind, guys. We still have Bark Skin. It still works the exact same as it has since we had it. We still have Bear Form. I'll talk a bit more about shapeshifting later on. Blessing of the Ancients is a talent. I'll talk about that soon. Cat Form, we still have that. Celestial Alignment still works the exact same as it did, but instead of freezing your lunar and solar power cycle, it now increases your astral power generation by 50% from Wrath, Wrath and Lunar Strike. Yeah, we still have Prowl for Cat Form, which is nice for questing. We have our Battle Res still. We have Regrowth, but that's if you spec a certain talent. I'll talk about that more in a second. We have our Target Res, our Silence. Now our passives, guys. Astral Influence, which means that it is what it is. It is what the tooltip says. Our Mastery buff is still effectively the same as what it was before, but it's just not as important for balanced druids as what it was before. I'll talk more about stat priorities and stuff a bit later on. And Sarah's Gift is our passive there, but As I said, I'll talk about talents later on. Alright, so just to recap, guys, our core abilities for our rotation is you want to. I still have a load of astral power because I'm still in combat, but you want to put both your dots on the target. Get stellar flare on. It's 15 astral power. Get stellar flare on. Build up your astral power. Starfall down to buff your dots, and just keep reapplying your dots, guys. Don't forget that. We still have Force of Nature, but it's really not the best at the minute. It really doesn't hit too hard at all. Warrior of Elune is nice. It's a nice burst for splash damage if you want to take down those ads on Kilrog real fast. That's really nice to go for, Warrior of Elune. But overall, I would go for Starfall because it just reduces the cast time. After you cast your Star Surge, you'll gain Lunar and Solar Empowerment for your Solar Wrath and your Lunar Strike, and that reduces the cast time of their spells by 20%. So if I want to demonstrate that, I'll pop off one Star Surge there, and Lunar Strike's cast time and Solar Wrath's cast time is then reduced. Renewal is nice. It's not really sustainable. It would be good for the likes of Manaroth. Whenever you get Manaroth's Gaze and nobody's soaking you, you can just pop Bark Skin and Renewal, and it's really good survival then. But for the whole, I would take Displacer Beast for a lot of movement based fights such as Iron Reaver, but this is just at the minute. Wild Charge I really wouldn't, especially for balance. It's just not viable at all. It's sort of like a Hunter's Disengage, but it's just nowhere near as overpowered. Level 45 talent, you can take Feral Affinity, which, I mean, you do gain all these abilities in cat form that you really should not be using in cat form anyway, because you're a balanced druid. You shouldn't be doing cat DPS. I see a lot of balanced druids in dungeons and stuff running into a load of mobs using Thrash and Swipe, and they just shouldn't be doing it. That increases your movement speed by 15%, which is kind of nice if you're questing on your own or something like that, but on the whole I just wouldn't take that. Guardian Affinity, you gain Thick Hide, which reduces all damage taken by 10%, and then you gain the bear abilities as well. Again, if you want to tank as a balanced druid, it's generally going to be a suicide mission, and you should not do it. That Thick Hide is kind of nice. You should take it for your healers, help them out, because it does apply to raid bosses as well, which is sort of the first time in a while that we've seen a buff like this, or a talent even like this. So yeah, it's kind of nice. Personally though, I'll take Restoration Affinity because I like Isera's Gift, which is just a passive heal that takes over on me all the time, and if I'm at full health it'll heal someone else in the raid. I think that is a hell of a lot more valuable than Guardian Affinity with the Thick Hide to the healers anyway. Alright, so for level 60 we have Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement and Typhoon. Mighty Bash, again, you should take that one for really only fights like Kilrog where you want to slow down those ads as soon as possible. But other than that, I wouldn't really use that. I would use Mass Entanglement before taking Mighty Bash. Mass Entanglement is just fantastic for Socrathar. I would take that to trap the ghosts straight away, stop them, and then the ranged DPS can burn them down. Typhoon just really isn't. It's more of a PvP sort of talent at the minute anyway. Level 75, Soul of the Forest just isn't really viable at the moment. It doesn't really become viable until level 110. Apparently that's just from what I've read on the forums anyway. Incarnation is really nice burst damage, but it's not really sustained damage as much as Stellar Flare is. It's probably worth mentioning that I took Stellar Flare because I have the tier 18 class trinket from Archimond, so it means that every time I cast Star Surge it has like a 50% chance to trigger Starfall as well. So it means that if I take Stellar Flare and I have Starfall up, it means that that's buffing my Stellar Flare by an additional 59%. So that's why I would take Stellar Flares if you have the Seed of Creation trinket. Otherwise, take Incarnation for that sick burst damage at the start of the fight, or a Bloodlust or anything like that. We have level 90 talents, and we have Shooting Stars, which really, I just don't like the way it feels. It's hard to explain, I just don't like it. It just feels clunky, and a 10% chance just isn't worth sacrificing another better talent for. Astral Communion. Again, that's nice for burst damage if you need to burn them down, but I mean, 75 astral power really isn't that much. I mean, it's enough to get your Star Surge off and to get your Stellar Flare off, but for a 1 minute cooldown, I would just leave it and take Blessing of the Ancients. Now, with Blessing of the Ancients, there's two blessings. There's Blessing of Elune and Blessing of Anshi. I would take Blessing of Elune personally, because that just increases your astral power generated by Solar Wrath and Lunar Strike constantly, by an additional 40%, rather than gaining 2 astral power every 2 seconds from Blessing of Anshi. Blessing of Elune, you just gain far more astral power if you're constantly casting as well. Blessing of Anshi, you just want to steer clear of, in my opinion. We have level 100 talents. We have Fury of Elune, which isn't viable until level 110. It just doesn't do any damage whatsoever. Nature's Balance really isn't that great, unless you're damaging one target for the entire fight, like Zakun or Iron Reaver or Cormrock. Just something, you know, where you can passively keep your dots up all the time. Hellfire Citadel, guys, it's an ads based raid. We're constantly killing down ads that spawn all the time. There's maybe 3 fights where we're not doing that, which is why I take Stellar Drift. Glyphs at this point in time, guys, don't really matter. I haven't taken glyphs on this one yet. Alright, so the Balanced Druid stat priority now is Intellect, Haste, Crit, Mastery, and Versatility. Now your Intellect, as we all know, it increases your spell power. Increasing your spell power means that your spells will hit a fuck ton harder. Stamina, you can leave stamina. It's nice to have a higher health pool so that healers aren't rinsing mana all the time on you, but I mean that's not really going to increase your damage at all. Your haste is going to increase your base casting speed of all of your spells, and it's also going to increase the speed of which your dots tick as well. Your dots are going to tick more often. Haste is the most important secondary stat we have at the minute. Crit, whenever your attacks do a critical strike, they're going to hit for 200% of their normal damage. And basically this is just the chance of which that's going to happen. So if you have 10% crit, that means that if I cast a Star Surge for 50,000 damage, there's a 10% chance that it's going to hit for 100,000 damage. Mastery, of course, is our Starlight ability, passive ability, which increases Starfall and Star Surge damage, and the effect of our Lunar, Solar, and Stellar empowerments by an additional 39%. But that's because my Mastery is kind of high at the minute, because I was stacking Mastery in 6.2 whenever it was the highest secondary stat. And Versatility increases your damage and healing done and decreases your damage taken. Versatility, guys, it's kind of a shitty stat to be taken. You really want to stay away from Versatility as much as you can. Only take it if you've hit the soft cap for everything else. That's when you want to start looking for Versatility. You want to enchant and gem haste everywhere, guys. You want to look for Intellect, then haste, then crit, then mastery, then versatility, in that order. I'm not sure what the cap ratios are on those people, but yeah, basically that's what you want to do. At the minute I'm pulling kind of decent numbers on this, 40-50,000 damage per second. which is kind of trash compared to before the pre-patch hit, whenever I was able to hit like 60k no problem. But there was a bit of a stat squish and our multi-strike got taken out and everything. Yeah, it's kind of respectable for my shitty stats and my shitty item level, and my gear just isn't best in slot at all. I have an heirloom, for fuck's sake. But yeah, guys, look, follow this advice, follow this guide, and you should be pulling some big numbers. That's the end of this video. Thanks very much for watching. If you have any suggestions, remember to leave them in the comments below. Hit us with a wee subscribe, hit us with a like, and we'll catch you next time. See you later, guys.